He was a mongoose, rather like a little cat in his fur and his tail, but quite like a weasel in his head and habits. His eyes and the end of his restless nose were pink. He could scratch himself anywhere he pleased with any leg, front or back, that he chose to use. He could fluff up his tail till it looked like a bottle brush, and his war cry as he scuttled through the long grass was, "Rick, tick, 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 tick." One day, a high summer flood washed him out of the burrow where he lived with his father and mother, and carried him kicking and clucking down the roadside ditch, and he lost his senses. When he revived, he was lying in the hot sun in the middle of a garden path, very bedraggled indeed.
Here's a dead mongoose. Let's have a funeral.
No, let's take him in and dry him. Perhaps he really isn't dead. So they wrapped him in cotton wool and warmed him over a little fire, and he opened his eyes and sneezed.
Achoo!
It's the hardest thing in the world to frighten a mongoose because he's eaten up from nose to tail with curiosity. He ran all around the table and sat on the boy's shoulder and snuffled in the collar of his shirt. Then he went out to the garden to see what was to be seen. This is a splendid hunting ground.
This is a splendid hunting ground.
He heard a sorrowful voices in a thorn bush. It was Darzy the tailor bird and his wife. They had made a beautiful nest by pulling 2 leaves together and stitching them up the edges with fibers, and had filled the hollow with cotton and downy fluff. The nest swayed to and fro as they sat on the rim and cried, "What's the matter?"
We are very miserable. One of our babies fell out of the nest yesterday and Nag ate them.
That is very sad, but I'm a stranger here. Who is Nag? From the thick grass at the foot of the bush came a low hiss. A horrible cold sound that made Rikki Tikki jump back 2 clear feet. Then inch by inch out of the grass rose up the head and spread hood of Nag, the big black cobra. He was 5 feet long from tongue to tail.
Hiss! Who is Nag? I am Nag! Look and be afraid!
Rikki Tikki had never met a live cobra before, but his mother had fed him on dead ones. Nag knew this too, and at the bottom of his cold heart he was afraid. Darzy said,
Behind you! Look behind you! Look behind you, Rikki Tikki!
He jumped high in the air, and just under him whizzed the head of Nagina, Nag's wicked wife. He came down almost across her back. He did not bite long enough, and he jumped clear of the whisking tail, leaving Nagina torn and angry. Rikki Tikki felt his eyes growing red and hot. He sat back on his tail and hind legs like a little kangaroo and looked all around him, chattering with rage, but Nag and Nagina had disappeared in the grass. A few days later, Rikki Tikki overheard Nag and Nagina whispering together just outside the bathroom wall in the moonlight. Hiss!
We will kill the people!
When there are no people in the bungalow, there will be no mongoose in the garden.
No. There's also, when there are no people in the bungalow, there will be no mongoose in the garden. As long as the house is empty, we're king and queen of the garden.
Remember that as soon as our eggs in the melon bed hatch, our children will need room and quiet.
That is good. I shall wait until somebody comes.
So he coiled himself down around the bulge of the water jar and fell asleep. Rikki Tikki snuck up behind him. It must be the head above the hood, to attack. And he said to himself, once I am there, I must not let go. He jumped. The head was lying a little clear of the water jar under the curve of it, and as his teeth met, Rikki hung on. Then he was battered to and fro as a rat is shaken by a dog, to and fro on the floor, up and down, and around in great circles. His eyes were red, and he held on as he was cat-whipped over the floor, upsetting the tin dipper and the soap dish and the flesh brush, and banged against the tin side of the bathtub. He was dizzy and aching and felt shaken to pieces when something went off like a thunderclap behind him.
Boom!
A hot wind knocked him senseless, and red fire singed his fur. Someone had fired a shotgun into Nag behind the hood.
No, somebody had been woken up by the noise and got a racket and fired both barrels into Nag.
It's the mongoose again, Teddy. It has saved our lives now. When morning came, Rikki Tikki was very stiff, but well pleased with his doings. Now I have Nagina to settle with, and she will be worse than 5 nags, and there's no knowing when the eggs she spoke of will hatch.
Nag is dead. Nag is dead. Nag is dead. He will never eat my babies again. Nag is dead.
On the rubbish heap by the stables.
On the rubbish heap by the stable. Greatest Rikki Tikki with the white teeth.
And Rikki says,
Father, my white teeth, do you know where she keeps her eggs?
in the melon bed on the end nearest the wall where the sun strikes nearly all day. So Rikki says, fly off to the stables, Mrs. Darcy, and pretend that your wing is broken, and let Nagina chase you away to this bush. I must get to the melon bed, and if I went there now, she'd see me. Mrs. Darcy fluttered in front of Nagina by the rubbish heap and cried out,
Oh, my ring is broken. The boy in the house threw a stone at it, and it broke my ring.
Nagina, hiss! You warned Rikki Tikki when I would have killed him. Indeed, you have chosen a bad place to be lame in. When you are dead, I shall settle accounts with the boy. What is the use of running away? I'm sure to catch you. Little fool, look at me. Darcy's wife knew better than to do that, for a bird who looks at a snake's eyes gets so frightened that she cannot move. Darcy's wife fluttered on, piping sorrowfully and never leaving the ground, and Nagina quickened her pace. As soon as Rikki Tikki heard them going on the path, he raced for the melon patch. There, in the warm litter above the melon, very cunningly hidden, he found 24 eggs about the size of a chicken's egg, but with whitish skins instead of shells. He could see the baby cobras curled up inside, and he knew that the minute they were hatched, they could each kill a man or a mongoose. He bit off the tops of the eggs as fast as he could, taking care to crush the young cobras. And then he heard Darcy's wife, Rikki Tikki, I led Nagina to the house, and she means to kill. He raced to the veranda and saw Teddy and his mother not eating breakfast, but sitting stone still, their faces white. Nagina was coiled up on the matting by Teddy's chair within easy striking distance of Teddy's bare leg, and she was swaying to and fro, singing a song of triumph. Son of the big man that killed Nag, stay still, wait a little.
Wait a little. If you move, I strike. Oh, foolish people who killed my Nag.
The big snake turned around and saw her last egg. What price for the snake's eggs for a young cobra? For the least, the very last of the brood, the red ants are eating all the others down by the melon bed. Nagina spun clear around, forgetting everything for the sake of one egg. In a minute, Teddy's mother had reached out for Teddy and dragged him to safety. Rikki, trick, Rick. The boy is safe, and it was I that caught Nag by the hood last night. Come and fight with me, you shall not be a widow long. Nagina, hiss. Give me the egg, Rikki Tikki, give me the last of my eggs, and I will go away and never come back. Yes, you will go away and you will never come back, for you will go to the rubbish heap with Nag. Fight, Nagina. Rikki Tikki was bounding all around Nagina, keeping just out of reach of her stroke, with little eyes like hot coals. Again and again he struck, and each time her head came with a whack on the matting of the veranda, and she gathered herself together like a watch spring. He'd forgotten the egg. Nagina came nearer to it, till at last, while Rikki Tikki was drawing breath, she caught it in her mouth, turned to the veranda steps, and flew like an arrow down the path with Rikki Tikki behind her. When a cobra runs for her life, she goes like a whiplash, flicking across the horse's neck. Rikki Tikki knew he must catch her, or all the trouble would begin again. As she plunged into the rat hole where she and Nag used to live, his little white teeth were clenched on her tail. He went down with her, and a very few mongooses cared to follow a cobra into his hole. Darcy said, It's all over for Rikki Tikki. Valiant Rikki Tikki is dead.
Nagina will surely kill him underground.
So he sang a very mournful song that he made up on the spur of the minute. Then the grass quivered, and Rikki Tikki, covered with dirt, dragged himself out of the hole, leg by leg, licking his whiskers. Rikki Tikki shook some of the dust out of his fur and sneezed. It's all over. Nagina will never come out again. And the red ants that lived between the grass stems heard him and began to troop down one after another to see if he had spoken the truth. Rikki Tikki curled himself up on the grass and slept where he was, slept and slept till it was late afternoon, for he had done a hard day's work. Now I will go back to the house, tell Darzee, and he will tell the garden that Nagina is dead. From then on, Rikki Tikki kept the garden as a mongoose should keep it, with tooth and jump and spring and bite, till never a cobra dared show his head inside the walls. Come take a bath. From then on, Rikki Tikki kept the garden as a mongoose should keep it, with tooth and jump and spring and bite, till never a cobra dared show its head inside the walls.
Inside the wall.
The end. Now you take a bath.
No.